We're ready to sew our blocks together. We've taken them off the wall in twos. We've turned the right one onto the left one, and we're going to sew that seam there. And we've got all of our seams lined up here. We take the first two. We're going to line up the top corners and the right sides. Get them under the edge of the presser foot. Hold our threads. Take a couple of stitches. Leave your needle down. And then even up the bottom edges and continue sewing. When you get to the end, pick up the next two. We're going to take them, get the top right corners even, put them even with the right side of the presser foot, take a couple of stitches, leave the needle down, and then even up these corners, even if you have to put a little pressure on it. We're going to continue this until we finish row 1. As you're sewing some of these seams together, you will notice that the seam on the back and the front are coming together at the same place. We do not want this bulk. So when you get these top two corners together, look and see which seam comes first and let it go in the direction it's supposed to. The second seam you come to, we're going to flip it in the opposite direction and sew over that so that it will not cause a problem. We don't want a huge mass of seams in there. So this one needs to come down. And that's all there is to it. When we get to this other end, we have 2 more. When you get close, peep under there, see which one comes first. I'm going to flip the back one up. Cut our string, and you can see that this one is going this way and this one is going down. This one's down and this one's up, so we do not have the bulk. We have row 1 and row 2 together. We want to check them by our pattern and make sure we do have them in the right place before we go any further. If we do, we're going to fold row 1 down onto row 2. Now remember, we have ironed all of these things to the left and all of these things to the right. Every odd row is to the left. Every even row is to the right. There are 12 rows, so that will help you keep up with that. As we sew them together, the left one and the right one will lock together. We want to pull those seams tight right there, and they will lock together, and all of our seams will be very pretty on the front of the quilt. So we're going to flip this one down and sew it to this one. Then we will put the pieces of our third row up here, sew them together, and then flip it down and sew that together until we have our entire quilt top together. We have our quilt top center together. All of our pattern is showing up now. It's looking really nice, but we need some borders on it. So we're going to get our tape measure. We're going to measure from this side to this side. We're going to measure it twice and make sure we get the right amount. When we get that amount, we're going to cut some strips 1.5 inches wide. And I've already done that. We've got our strips cut. We're going to cut them the length it is wide and sew them to the top and the bottom. After we do that, we're going to measure from the top to the bottom 2 times and make sure we get our number correct. And then cut 2 strips, and they will go on the sides, and that will complete our first border. We have our first border on, the dark green border. We have pressed it out toward the border. We're ready to measure for our second border. I've already cut it and pieced these pieces into one long piece so that I can take my measurements and cut from that. We're going to measure from left and right. 67 inches. We want to measure twice and make sure we did get it right. 67 inches. So we need to make sure that we get our measurement right, and then we also need to make sure that we write it down. Keep you a piece of paper handy, and as you get these measurements, write them down so you will not cut something wrong. when you measure your material out, measure it twice and make sure. But write it down on a piece of paper so you won't be trying to remember all of these things. Now, we have all 4 of our lighter color borders on. We have the dark green and then the lighter border. And I've decided to put one more thin border along the outside in this red. And then when I bind it in the green, it's going to look really nice. So I will measure from side to side, cut my borders that length, and measure top to bottom and cut the borders that length and get those on. I want about a 2-inch border around so I will have enough to trim off when I finish the quilt and I can square it up real good. So we'll do that now. We're going to put one more border around the quilt. I want a 2-inch wide strip, wide enough and long enough to go all the way around the quilt top. My material is 45 inches wide. I'm going to cut 2-inch strips the width of the material, and I'll trim off just enough of the selvage to get that gone. And then I'm going to connect these 2-inch strips end to end into one long strip and cut off what I need to go at the top and the bottom and then on the left and the right sides of the quilt. We have our last border on the quilt now, and it's ready to go onto the quilting machine or to be basted and hand quilted or machine quilted on our sewing machine, whichever method you prefer. We have worked really hard to get our log cabin built. We have our hearth, and we have our light logs and our dark logs around it. That's what makes the log cabin block. I hope you've learned something this week, and until I see you again, happy quilting.